Hi again then guys, and welcome to another tune setup for Gran Turismo Sport, and once again for another one of our new DLC cars in the game, the Ford F-150 Raptor, my personal favourite of the new cars. And this is a circuit build for technical circuits in particular, because this car isn't that strong for top-end speed, but we're taking it around the Nordschleife in just a second to prove what it's capable of, in particular at the N400 level, and at the top tier of the N400 level, which is 439 horsepower. Now, as you can see, mine is fully upgraded, but it doesn't need to be. If you just want to use it for N400, then of course you could just tune it to that level. However, I would strongly recommend having the weight as low as you can. Now, of course, if balance of performance comes into play, then none of this will be relevant anyway, and you can just use all of the other settings. But if you are specifically building it for a level, then that will come into play, because you need to get rid of as much weight as possible on this car. So as you can see, N400, as I said, drop that weight. Traction control you definitely want turned off. It's got more than enough grip anyway. We've got sport softs on it. Of course you could go for racing and make it even better, but it's kind of overkill. As far as the suspension, we've dropped the ride height all the way, which is still pretty high, 200mm, but the main point of that is to get that real centre of gravity on this car nice and low. Much lower, reduces body roll, stops it from wallowing around as much, and it allows you to get through corners quicker. The frequency we've increased to 1.6, front and rear. Anti-roll I've actually dropped quite a bit to 3, and I quite often do that on my larger trucks and SUVs, because you just don't need it to be ultra high. The natural body weight of the car helps a lot, especially with lowered ride height. As far as compression, I've increased that to 63 front and rear, increased the rebound to 92, so slightly lower in comparison. As far as camber, you definitely don't need any on this car. Neutral toe as well. Downforce doesn't apply. As far as the diff, I've opted for the lowest initial torque, not the highest, halfway on acceleration, and also halfway on braking. But of course, feel free to change those, even if you just want to try other things for the sake of it. That's how often you can learn to tune better, just by trial and error. So don't be afraid of that. If it goes wrong, you can always just come back and set it to this again. So don't be afraid to fail. As far as the gearbox, I'd recommend having an auto setting of 137, because, as I said, even with 440 horsepower, it's not a top-end speed car. So, of course, it can be beaten by stuff like, say, an RX-7 or a KTM Crossbow for top-end acceleration and top speed, but it's more the low-end grunt that this car's good for. So, as I said, auto setting of 137, then I've basically rounded off the gears to 3.2, 2.2, 1825, 1450, 1.2 and 1030 with a final drive of 4. And in the N400 class in particular, and of course this will change based on the power, that's good enough for about 135, 140-ish miles per hour. So it's not slow, it's good for a truck, but of course it can be beaten. And that will obviously change along with the acceleration if you give it more power or less power, but just rebuild it to whatever class you want. And the only thing that you really need to change, if you do want to have it in a different class, say N300 all the way up to N700, is just the gearing. Everything else can pretty much be universal, with minor changes when necessary. So if you do want to take it higher, of course you'll want longer gears, and vice versa, make them closer together if you drop it to N300. But to prove what it's capable of and to see what it looks like in action, let's go out to the Nordschleife. Overall then, as I said, it's a truck, so don't expect it to beat everything. This is more the kind of tune for people who, like myself, love using big, heavy, brutish vehicles, but at the same time ones which can win races, not necessarily against everyone of course, but under certain circumstances. It's kind of a novelty car, but with a performance tune that is very serious. This is not a novelty tune, it is designed to be fast and also a lot better through corners, in a very similar way to how you would want to tune a muscle car. So, overall, if you want to use this tune, of course you can copy it, it's pretty simple. And if you want the livery on the car, which is of course Team HSG, then you can get that from my community page as well. Plus, incidentally, the lap of this track with me driving was a 7:55 in the N400 class. So that gives you some idea in comparison to your own cars and your own times of what you can expect from this vehicle. Of course, some will be quicker than that, some will be slower by the nature of a lap time. And if you would like to check out the entire lap to watch the whole thing, then you can also find that on my community page as well. But that's it overall for this particular tune. Of course, you can check out drag tunes, circuit builds, a variety of others here on the channel as well by clicking through to the full list at the end of this video. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.